One of the more bizarre chapters in recent American criminal history has come to an end. The end for Ted Bundy, a 42-year-old killer who left a trail of at least 20 murders from one end of the country to the other.
Imagine the perfect man, handsome, intelligent, studying law, volunteering at a suicide hotline, a man with a warm smile, soft-spoken charm, and the kind of gentle confidence that made people trust him instantly. He was the kind of man your parents would approve of. The kind of man you'd feel safe around. The kind of man you'd never suspect. That man was Ted Bundy. But here's the truth that still chills America to this day. Ted Bundy was not a person. Ted Bundy was a mask. Behind those blue eyes and that charismatic grin was one of the most calculated predators in history. A man who confessed to killing more than 30 young women across 7 states. This is not just a story about a serial killer. This is a story about deception, about manipulation, about how a monster weaponized charm and intelligence to hide in plain sight. Before we begin, ask yourself this. If the most dangerous killer in American history looked like a movie star, then how many monsters are hiding in plain sight today? To answer that question, we must go back to where the mask was first created. Welcome to Evil Crime Archives, where power, danger, and deception collide. From the world's deadliest criminals to the secrets buried in the shadows, we uncover the stories others fear to tell. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dive crime investigations. Chapter 1: The Forging of the Mask. Ted Bundy entered the world in 1946, but the world he entered was already crafted on a lie. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was young and unmarried, a situation considered shameful in that era. To protect the family's reputation, Ted was raised believing his grandparents were his parents, and his mother was his older sister. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a deliberate deception, and it was the first mask he ever knew. As Bundy grew older, he began to uncover the truth. Some relatives hinted at different possibilities. Some even suggested that his father may have been a violent man, or worse, someone within the family. The truth was never firmly established, but the damage was already done. Bundy's identity began on unstable ground, filled with secrets, shame, and confusion. A brilliant yet isolated child, Bundy was intelligent from a young age. He excelled academically, had a talent for debate, and absorbed knowledge quickly. But socially, he struggled. He was awkward, uncomfortable, and often isolated. He watched normal people the same way a scientist observes subjects in a laboratory. He didn't fit in, he didn't understand relationships, and he resented the world for it. Learning to wear the mask. Bundy eventually discovered something powerful. If he couldn't naturally connect with people, he could pretend. He studied psychology, learning how to read emotions, mimic empathy, and manipulate behavior. He became an expert in understanding what people wanted to see, and showing them exactly that. One of the strangest parts of his early life was his volunteer work at a suicide prevention hotline. There, he learned to speak gently, to gain trust, to calm people in distress. Callers described him as caring and compassionate, a chilling contrast to the darkness he was already cultivating within. The first love that shaped his hatred. During college, Bundy fell deeply in love with a wealthy, elegant woman named Stephanie Brooks. She was everything he aspired to be, refined, educated, and respected. When she ended their relationship, telling him he lacked direction and maturity, something snapped. Bundy's resentment toward rejection, especially rejection by women, became the emotional fuel for the violence that followed. That heartbreak was the crack where the monster first appeared. Chapter 2: The Dual Life and the First Victims. After college, Bundy began constructing his life the way an architect builds a skyscraper, carefully, intentionally, and with a blueprint. He wanted to look successful. He wanted admiration. And most importantly, he wanted power. Publicly, he was respected. Privately, he was becoming a predator. The master of the double life. By day, Bundy worked in politics, volunteered, attended law school, and charmed everyone he met. He had a girlfriend, Elizabeth Klopfer, someone who loved him dearly and believed him to be kind, attentive, and loving. But she also noticed things she didn't understand. Sudden, uncontrollable anger. disappearances during evenings, strange objects in his home, rope, plaster casts, crutches, a habit of watching women intensely, a constant need for control. Liz would later say she sensed something wrong inside him, but the mask was too convincing. She doubted her own instincts. The first murders. Bundy began attacking and killing young women in the early 1970s. His victims often resembled his ex-fiancée. Young, slender, long, dark hair parted down the middle. It was a deliberate psychological pattern, a twisted attempt to regain control over the rejection that shattered him. His deadly method, charm as a weapon. Bundy didn't stalk his victims like a traditional predator. He used deception. He pretended to be injured, carrying books with an arm and a fake cast, limping with a cane, struggling to load items into his car. Women, seeing a polite, handsome man in need of help, approached willingly. Once they were close enough, the mask dropped. This strategy worked repeatedly. The police were confused. How could a killer be so confident, so public, so unafraid? Because no one suspected Ted Bundy. He didn't look like a killer, and that was his greatest advantage. Bodies across states. Bundy committed crimes in Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, moving between states to confuse law enforcement. Investigators struggled to connect the dots because the idea of a young, articulate law student committing such crimes seemed unbelievable. But behind the scenes, Bundy was refining his methods, becoming more violent, more organized, and more arrogant. Chapter 3: The Arrests and the Ultimate Performance. In 1975, Bundy's luck began to break. A simple traffic stop late at night revealed suspicious items inside his vehicle: handcuffs, masks, rope, and a crowbar. He was arrested and later charged with kidnapping. But Bundy wasn't done, not even close. Bundy the lawyer, performing in court. During his Colorado trial, Bundy convinced the judge to let him act as his own attorney. This wasn't because he believed he could win legally. It was because he wanted control. He used the courtroom as a stage, charming reporters, smiling during interviews, reminding everyone of his intelligence, manipulating narratives, making himself the center of attention. But this wasn't a defense, it was theater. The first escape. On June 7, 1977, Bundy jumped out of a second-story courthouse window while supposedly reviewing legal documents. He ran into the mountains and survived on minimal food and stolen supplies. 6 days later, he was caught again. But this escape fed his ego. He now believed he was unstoppable. Chapter 4: The Second Escape and the Florida Rampage. Bundy was transferred to a maximum security prison, but he refused to be contained. Over months, he starved himself to lose weight and secretly carved a hole in the ceiling of his cell. On December 30th, 1977, he slipped through the hole, climbed into a guard's apartment, changed clothes, and walked out the front door. He then escaped across the country to Florida. The mask finally falls. In Florida, Bundy unleashed a level of violence that revealed his true nature. No charm, no restraint, no calculated deception. On January 15, 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. 4 young women were brutally attacked. 2 were murdered. He fled before police arrived. This attack was savage, impulsive, and enraged. It showed the real Bundy, the one he had hidden for years. Weeks later, he kidnapped and murdered 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. It was a crime so horrific that even hardened detectives struggled to understand it. This was no longer the charming law student. This was a cornered animal. Chapter 5: The Trial of the Century. Bundy was finally captured again. This time, the world watched. His Florida trial became the first nationally televised criminal trial in U.S. history. And Bundy loved every second of it. Bundy versus the world. He acted as his own attorney again, cross-examining witnesses in a twisted attempt to intimidate and manipulate those who survived his attacks. He joked with reporters, performed for cameras, and smiled for the audience. In one of the most shocking moments of the trial, Bundy proposed to his girlfriend, Carol Ann Boone, in the courtroom, using an obscure Florida law to marry her on the spot. It wasn't love, it was manipulation, it was control, it was performance. The evidence was overwhelming. Bite mark analysis linked him directly to the Chi Omega murders. Hair samples, eyewitness accounts, stolen items, all pointed to Bundy with undeniable certainty. The jury saw through the mask. Bundy was convicted and sentenced to death.
A judge in Miami today followed the jury's recommendation and sentenced Theodore Bundy to die in the electric chair for the murder of two co-eds. Bundy is the 136th person under death sentence in Florida.
But even on death row, he continued the performance, filing appeals, giving interviews, manipulating supporters. Chapter 6, The Final Confessions and the Legacy of Deception. In the final days before his execution in 1989, Bundy began confessing to more murders. The interviews were chilling, not just for the details he revealed, but for the cold, emotionless manner in which he described his victims. He blamed pornography. He blamed circumstances. He blamed anything except himself. Even in the end, we still don't know how many victims he truly had. Estimates go far beyond the 30 he confessed to. The real legacy of Ted Bundy. Bundy changed the way America thinks about killers. Before him, most people believed monsters were easy to spot. Bundy shattered that illusion. He showed the world that evil can be articulate. Evil can be educated. His case transformed criminal psychology, investigative methods, and public awareness. He taught investigators that charm can be a weapon, that manipulation can be lethal, and that sometimes the scariest face is the most handsome one in the room. After everything we've uncovered about Bundy, one question still chills investigators, psychologists, and the public. What truly motivated Ted Bundy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to continue exploring the darkest minds in criminal history, watch our deep dive into Jeffrey Dahmer next, or explore our serial killers, cults, and the psychology of crime playlist for more terrifying stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode of Evil Crime Archives.